notion of pan-Islamism, I mean, pan anything, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the airline that was called Pan America.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, very much like when in earlier times you would read references to the kingdom of God or the Christendom and the existence of Christendom without geographical boundaries, and so on. Pan-Islamism can mean a variety of things. I mean, it can mean a sense of affinity and unity among all Muslims, followers of the faith, in the same way that we can talk about the British Commonwealth or the English Commonwealth. I mean, there is more than just a spiritual affinity. There is actually a shared perspective on royalty, shared perspective on law, shared perspective on. It can mean a loosely united confederacy like the European Union, among states that see themselves as sharing the same culture, and or it can mean an imperial style entity that exists in a state of hostility or antagonism with the rest of the world. A throwback to imperial, the period of empires and wars of empires and the existence of empire versus empire, and basically it was a free for all. One of the really critical points is that often we don't differentiate between one form of pan whatever and a pan versus a different type of pan whatever. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Iran, which tends to talk in terms of pan-Islam all the time, Iran, as a Shia state, has attempted right after the revolution to appeal to pan-Islamicity in general, found it impossible because they couldn't overcome the Sunni-Shia divide, and basically has a very strong sense, in fact, a fanatic sense of Persian nationalism, and sometimes it reaches racist and ethnic levels. Persians as superior to Arabs and superior to Afghanis and superior to Turks and superior to Kurds and so on. But that nationalism is infused with all type of Islamic symbolism, so that an Arab Muslim can immediately tell you, oh, the Persians, where they talk about Islamic Iran, what they're really talking about is that we Persians are better than you freaking Arab Muslims. While an outsider might, just hear Islam, it's one big blob of Islam. Same thing with a lot of Afghanis. Some of the most hostile sensitivities among Kurds and Afghanis are towards Persians, because their experience, even as refugees, in Iran, or as people who dealt with Iran as a state, was that they were treated with absolute racism. Now, at the same time, Muslim nations, after the abolition of the Caliphate, the Ottoman Caliphate, have tried to put into motion a form of even an alliance, not even anything as good as the European Union or as the Organization of American States, South American states, and or the Organization even of African states. They created something called the Muslim World League, which has not been a success and has been really a resounding failure, in the sense that no unified policies, not even commercial facilitation. So the Muslim World League, meets every once in a while, agrees on nothing, and disperses. And so even in countries that have a very stringent patriarchal form of Islam, like Saudi Arabia, have been remarkably uncooperative with any pan-Islamic idea, and has been, and countries like Egypt, even more so. And part of the problem is that most Muslim rulers, the thing that the common average people don't know is that most Muslim rulers govern in the name of a brand of secular nationalist something. So Saddam Hussein was a secular Arab nationalist. Mubarak was a secular Egyptian nationalist. Assad was a secular Arab nationalist. And their secularism is quite rabid. So when you ask, okay, so who are the Islamists? You come to the Saudis, for instance, and you say, then you get into these issues of what the ruling family Al Saud, is it really Islamic, or is it just exploiting the Islamic name to sort of legitimate its sovereignty over the holy sites? And there was a period in Pakistan, which didn't live very long, in which Islamicity was attempted. A period in Nigeria, the remnants of Boko Haram, a miserably failed experience in Sudan, which resulted in the country splitting and a military dictatorship that no longer bothers to rule in the name of Islam. So pan-Islamism, as the idea of this scary, unified Muslim boogeyman that will exist in a state of aggression with all others, exists in the theoretical mind and the abstract mind of some fanatics. Now, interestingly, one of the big disagreements between Al-Qaeda and ISIS, for instance, was exactly this pan-Islamist caliphate state. Al-Qaeda saw its objectives simply as the ejection of Western forces from the Middle East, and then sometimes they would say the Muslim world, but the core leadership of Al-Qaeda wanted the ejection of Western forces, American, British, French, and that's really what they mean by Western most of the time, from the Middle East. And that's what Bin Laden started out after a period of actually close association with the Saudi ruling family and the U.S. government. What made him go the other way is that he wanted American forces out of Saudi Arabia. ISIS came in with the idea of, let's bring back the caliphate, and this time, instead of having a Kurdish caliphate, or we will have a real Arab caliphate. But how many people would be willing to have a psychotic character like al-Baghdadi, who was known as a hoodlum in his youth, and really, him and his uncle used to, used to go around beating and robbing, and would give their allegiance to someone like that. And even if he was of a high moral character, the number of Muslims that would agree with the notion of the restoration of the caliphate as a political institution rather than as a symbolic spiritual institution I would say that the idea of the restoration of the caliphate as a political entity would, even in theory, even if we do just a purely theoretical empirical study, I would not bet more than 5% of Muslims would agree with. The simply Muslim countries have exist within the reality of nation state, and the idea of dissolving boundaries between them. So, for instance, for a country like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or the Emirates or even or Iraq to dissolve boundaries and allow all Muslims to freely come in and partake and share their wealth, so the poorest Muslim can now look for jobs in the areas that have oil and have money. It's something that so it depends on who you're talking to and when and where and so on.